All right, let's dive in. Today, we're cracking open the essential toolkit of science. We're going to see how researchers take a simple moment of curiosity and turn it into real, solid knowledge. It always starts with a question, right? What if kids who eat breakfast actually do better in school? Or, hey, what if putting more streetlights in a neighborhood really made it safer? These aren't just random shower thoughts. They're the little sparks, the seeds of discovery. And there's a fascinating, structured way to grow them into actual answers. So, how do you make that leap? How do you turn a question into actual science? Well, it's all about a process, a way of moving back and forth between those big, abstract ideas and the nitty-gritty details you can actually see and measure. It's the official roadmap for discovery. And here's that roadmap, the research cycle. The beautiful thing about it is that it's a loop. It never really ends because every answer just leads to a better, smarter question. You start with that spark of curiosity. You make a solid prediction. You go out and get your evidence, and you see what it tells you. But here's the key. The goal isn't just to find an answer. It's to find the next question. That's how knowledge actually grows. Okay, so let's grab the first major tool from our toolkit, the theory. This is the big picture guide, our starting point for trying to understand pretty much anything. Now, let's be super clear about something. A scientific theory isn't just a hunch or a wild guess. Not at all. It's a carefully built explanation for why things are the way they are. It pulls together a whole bunch of ideas and observations into one cohesive story that helps make sense of the world. I absolutely love this way of thinking about it. A theory really is like a map of a landscape. It's not going to show you every single rock or tree, but it gives you the lay of the land. It shows you the mountains, the rivers, the major roads. It gives you the big pictures you can actually start to navigate a topic. Okay, so if the theory is our big map, how do we actually use it? Well, you don't explore the whole map at once. You pick one specific path you want to check out. And that specific path, that's your hypothesis. It's where we zoom in from the huge landscape to one single testable prediction. A hypothesis is the crucial bridge that gets us from the world of big ideas, from our theory, into the real world where we can actually conduct a study. It's a bold, clear statement that says, okay, based on my map, here is exactly what I expect to find when I go out there and start looking. And you can see just how practical this is. It works in any field. We go from a vague idea like breakfast is probably good for kids to something super specific and concrete. Students who eat breakfast will have higher attention levels. Now that's something you can actually go out and test. But, not all hypotheses are created equal. A really good one is always a clear statement, not a question. It connects two or more ideas, and it has to be logical. But honestly, the absolute #1 deal-breaker rule is this. It has to be testable. If you can't imagine an experiment or a study that could prove it right or wrong, then it's just not a scientific hypothesis. Period. And here's the difference in a nutshell. Asking, will breakfast affect attention, is a great question. That's where the curiosity starts. But a hypothesis makes a stand. It declares, students who eat breakfast will show higher attention levels. See that? It's the critical shift from just wondering about something to making a firm prediction. Now, what's really cool is that in any study, you're actually juggling two competing hypotheses. You've got your research hypothesis, that's what you think is going to happen, but you also have what's called the null hypothesis. Think of it as the ultimate skeptic in the room. The null always says, nope, nothing's going on here, no relationship exists. And what's so powerful about this is that your job as a researcher is to collect enough evidence to prove that skeptic wrong, to confidently say, sorry, but we have to reject your nothing is happening idea. You can also decide how gutsy you want to be with your prediction. A directional hypothesis is bold. It says scores will go up or pain will go down. You're pointing in a specific direction. A non-directional one is a bit more cautious. It basically says, I think something's going to happen here, there will be a difference, but I'm not going to bet on whether it's up or down just yet. So every one of these hypotheses describes a relationship between at least two things. In the world of research, we call those things variables. and they are the absolute core ingredients of any study. Here's a super easy trick to remember the first one. The independent variable is the thing that I, the researcher, get to change or control. It's the cause you're interested in. It's the new teaching method you introduce or the amount of tutoring you give someone. And if the independent variable is the cause, then the dependent variable is the effect. Its outcome, its value, depends on what you did with the independent variable. So if you give tutoring, that's your independent variable, then the test scores you measure afterward, that's your dependent variable. So we have our cause, the independent variable, and our effect, the dependent variable. But, and this is a big but, there's often a sneaky third character lurking in the background, the confounding variable. Think of this guy as the spoiler. It's some other factor that could mess up your results. Like in our tutoring study, what if some of the kids were also getting private tutoring at home? That's a classic confounding variable that could totally mislead you. So let's stick with this detective idea because it works perfectly. Your independent variable is your main suspect. The dependent variable is the crime scene outcome. And that confounding variable, that's the unexpected twist in the third act that a really good detective always has to be looking out for. Okay, let's zoom back out for a second and see how all these pieces fit together. Because there's a really elegant flow from the big idea all the way down to the focus study. Really, it all comes down to their two different jobs. Theories are there to explain. They give us that big picture understanding of the why. Hypotheses, on the other hand, are there to test. They give us a very specific, focused way to see if our big explanation actually holds up in the real world. And here's exactly how that link works. You might start with a broad theory, like, say, routine activity theory, which suggests that crime is more likely when there aren't enough guardians around. From that big idea, that map, you can draw a very specific, testable path. Therefore, neighborhoods with more streetlights will have fewer burglaries. You see, the theory gives you the reasoning behind your prediction. And this is it. This is the whole game right here. The entire flow of discovery boiled down. You start with a big theory, you use it to create a specific, testable hypothesis, and that hypothesis is built out of carefully chosen variables. It's a funnel, taking you from the most general idea to the most specific measurement. And that's it. Just three things: theory, hypothesis, variables. That's the engine of research. Once you really get how these three components work together, you understand the fundamental logic of how we build knowledge about pretty much anything. So, now it's your turn. You have the basic toolkit that every researcher uses to turn a question into an answer. So, what are you curious about? What's the what if about your work, your community, or just your own life that you would want to put to the test?